From rejected to admired, a real motivational story. Everyone has that moment, that instant that marks your life forever. And it's usually not the moment of success, not when everyone applauds. It's the moment when you're rejected, when they look you in the eyes and say, no, you can't do it. But what you don't know is that this no can be exactly the starting point for a yes much bigger than you ever imagined. The story I'm going to tell you today proves it. And if you've ever felt worthless, hopeless, or invisible, this is the story you need to hear right now. I met Marcus on a cold, rainy day. He was sitting on a worn wooden bench in a park near a bus station. Marcus was 34 years old, but he looked like he carried 100. His blue eyes had a deep sadness, as if they told stories of disappointments he had kept for so long they had become part of his bone structure. Marcus was a cook. At least that's what he said on days when he had the courage to talk about himself. But the truth was more complicated. He was a man who had loved cooking since childhood. He grew up in a humble family, where his mother worked in a small restaurant, and Marcus spent his afternoons watching the chefs work, dreaming of the day when he could create dishes that would make people close their eyes in satisfaction. For 15 years, Marcus studied. He took culinary courses, worked as an assistant, moved up to prep cook, then to cook. Each promotion was a victory he celebrated quietly, but there was an invisible barrier he couldn't cross, a dream that seemed within reach but never actually came his way. 3 years before sitting on that rainy bench, Marcus tried to open his own restaurant. He saved every penny, invested everything he had. The restaurant opened, and for 6 months, it was the sensation of the city. People lined up. The reviews were excellent. Marcus slept little, ate less, but he was happy. Then everything collapsed. A bigger competitor set up shop on the next street. The finances couldn't hold up. The restaurant closed. Marcus lost everything, not just the money, but something much worse. He lost the belief that he was capable. After that, he tried working in other restaurants, but rejection came brutally. Owners said he had too much baggage, that his previous failure made him a risk, that maybe he didn't have the talent he thought he had. One manager even said, "You're good, Marcus, but you're not a winner. Winners don't fail like that." The words stayed. They occupied space in his mind like parasites that fed on confidence. In 2 years, Marcus had quit 3 jobs because the weight of those words was so heavy he couldn't get out of bed. Now sitting on that bench, Marcus breathed the damp air of the rain and asked himself the same question every night. Why can't I do it? Why do they reject who I am? He was invisible, or worse than that, he was remembered, but only for having failed. He was the one who tried and couldn't do it. And in a society that only celebrates the victorious, that made him practically erased. That's when he met Sophia, or rather, that's when Sophia found him. Sophia was a 62-year-old woman with white hair, bright brown eyes, and a confidence so natural it seemed from another time. She sat on the bench next to Marcus without asking permission, as if that space had been shared for centuries. She held a coffee in a red thermos cup and had a worn cloth folder under her arm. Marcus was used to people ignoring his existence, so he simply continued looking at the rain. But Sophia started talking. She didn't ask invasive questions. She didn't offer pity. She simply talked about her own failure. "I failed 3 times before I succeeded," she said, watching the rain with the same intensity as Marcus. "First time, I lost everything financially. Second time, I lost my marriage because I got so obsessed with succeeding that I forgot to live. Third time I succeeded but discovered it was for the wrong reason. All those failures left me devastated. Worse than devastated. They left me invisible, because when you fail, the world doesn't see you as a person anymore. You become your failure." Sophia turned to Marcus for the first time and smiled. It wasn't a fake smile. It was from someone who knows pain because they've already carried it on their back. "But I discovered something interesting about failure," she continued. "I discovered that failure is actually a diploma that most people don't have." Marcus looked at her. "When you fail," Sophia explained, "you learn things that no one who has never failed would ever learn. You know real fear. You know death in life. You know emptiness. And when you know these things, when you survive them, you become different. Not better. Different. And different is exactly what the world is looking for, even if it doesn't know it." "Who are you?" Marcus asked. Sophia took a deep breath. "Someone who learned the lesson for the 5th time. Now I teach." What Marcus didn't know was that Sophia had built an entire career helping people transform their failures into platforms. She was a coach, a mentor, and had helped hundreds of people. But there was something about Marcus on that rainy day that moved her. Maybe it was because she saw herself in his eyes. Sophia invited Marcus for coffee. It wasn't a superficial conversation. It was the beginning of a challenge that would change his life. The following weekend, Sophia took Marcus to a specific place, an old bridge over a river, which was known for being dangerous. People sometimes remembered this bridge because there were accidents, because it was scary, because it was easy to fall. "I brought you here for a reason," said Sophia as they stood in the middle of the bridge, watching the running water 50 feet below. "This bridge is like you now. Scary, forgotten, feared. People avoid crossing here when they can. They take a different, safer route. But this bridge still exists, it still works. The only thing that makes this bridge dangerous is the reputation it has. The reputation it has for having failed to protect some people who weren't careful." Marcus trembled slightly. "Now I'm going to do an exercise with you," Sophia continued. "I'm going to stay here. You're going to cross this bridge. But it's not just crossing. You're going to stop in the middle. You're going to sit on the edge for 10 minutes while fear tries to tell you that you're dangerous, that you shouldn't be here, that you might fall. And you're going to realize that none of this is true." "Why? This is crazy," Marcus protested. "Because every time you feel like you're rejected, like you're a failure, your body believes you're dangerous, that you can hurt someone, that you should be afraid. But that's a lie your mind created. The bridge isn't dangerous. You're not dangerous. You're just someone that reputation scared. So we're going to confront that now." Marcus started walking. The bridge creaked with each step. The wind blew hard, and there was a maintenance ladder next to him that was rusted and looked like it could collapse at any moment. Cliffhanger. Anything could go wrong. He reached the middle. He sat down. The first few minutes were terrible. His mind screamed at him to go back, said he would die, that it was stupid to be there. But then something changed. The sounds started making sense. The wind wasn't threatening. It was music. The water wasn't death. It was life moving. And Marcus realized something profound in that moment. "Nothing is happening to me because I'm rejected," he whispered to himself. "Nothing is happening to me because I deserve to suffer. Something is happening because I allowed other people's opinion of me to become my opinion of myself." When he came down from the bridge 10 minutes later, Marcus was different. Not completely transformed, but with a crack in the protective shell that imprisoned him. After that day, Sophia put him through other challenges. A week later, she took him to a very popular restaurant in the city. Not as a customer, as someone who needed to go into the kitchen and talk to the chef. "You're going to go in there," Sophia instructed from outside. "You're going to talk to the chef. You're going to tell him you were rejected, that you failed, and you're not going to apologize for either one. You're going to go in there as someone who learned something most people will never learn." Marcus felt panic take over. "This is embarrassing. They're going to humiliate me." "Maybe," Sophia replied. "Or maybe they'll see courage in you instead of weakness. You'll never know if you don't try. And besides, you've already been humiliated in your mind 1,000,000 times. One more time won't kill you." Marcus went in. The chef was a middle-aged man named Diego. Marcus started timidly stuttering, explaining that he had failed and was trying to rebuild his confidence. But then something strange happened. Diego started listening, and not just listening politely. He sat down. He asked Marcus to describe his failure. And when Marcus finished a sentence, Diego asked, "And what did you learn from that?" 3 hours later, Diego was offering Marcus a special job. It wasn't a regular job. It was a project. Marcus would create an entire menu based on his experiences, his failures, his pain. A menu that told a story through food. Marcus didn't fully understand at that moment, but Sophia did. "You see," she said when Marcus came out of the restaurant still in shock. "You weren't humiliated. You were seen. And you were seen exactly because you presented yourself as someone who failed. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's honesty. And honesty attracts real people." 3 months later, Marcus's menu launched. It was called From Nothing to Everything, a journey of rebuilding. Each dish had a story. The appetizer was bitter and sweet, representing the first months after failure. The main course was complex, full of layers, showing reconstruction, slow learning. The dessert was light, almost airy, symbolizing rebirth. Food critics came, journalists wrote, and the description that appeared in the articles wasn't about a cook who failed. It was about an artist who had transformed his pain into beauty. "Marcus isn't an ordinary cook," wrote a renowned critic. "He's an artist who learned that his scars are his most precious asset. Each dish is a confession, And these confessions touched the soul. The restaurant started filling up. But the real moment of transformation wasn't when he read that article. It was during a service night when a woman came to the kitchen with tears in her eyes and said, "Your rebuilding dish saved me. I was thinking about giving up on my dreams because I failed. But eating here today, I realized that failure is just a part of the story, not the end of it. You showed me that if you can rebuild your dreams in food, I can rebuild my dreams in my life." In that moment, Marcus finally understood what Sophia had tried to tell him at the beginning. "You weren't rejected because you weren't good enough," Sophia explained when he told her the story. "You were rejected because the world was waiting for something more from you. The world didn't need another cook. The world needed the cook who learned that his failures could nourish other people's hope. The universe was asking for your story, not just your talent." Marcus cried that night, but they were different tears, not of failure, of recognition. He had finally understood that the no he had received wasn't a no about his worth. It was a yes about his destiny. It was the universe saying, "Wait a bit, you can be much more than this." A year later, Marcus had his own restaurant again, but this one was different. It wasn't just a place to eat, it was a place for transformation. He offered programs where people who had failed in their professions came to spend an evening. They cooked together with Marcus, shared their stories, and ate food that had meaning because it had suffering behind it. The restaurant became a landmark not for having the best food, but for having the most honest food. And Marcus became known not as that cook who failed, but as that cook who transformed his failure into a school for other people. Sophia continued visiting regularly, now not as a mentor but as a friend. She sat at a special table, watched Marcus work, and smiled with the satisfaction of someone who knows they changed a life. And Marcus still woke up some nights remembering the weight of those no's. But now they had a different meaning. They were reminders of a before, of a time when he believed that a person's worth was defined by the approval of others. But here's the truth that Marcus finally learned, and that I need to share with you now. The rejection you feel isn't about you. It's about others not having the capacity to see what you're capable of becoming. It's about a world that isn't ready yet for your transformation. Every time Marcus was rejected, what was actually happening was that the universe was eliminating all the paths that didn't lead to his true purpose. It was closing doors that would keep him small. It was breaking mirrors that reflected a false version of himself. Failure isn't game over, it's maturation. It's the soil where the roots of true confidence can grow. Because when you survive the no, when you walk across the bridge of fear and discover it doesn't collapse, you become immortal. Not literally, but on a level that matters. You become someone who can't be destroyed by external judgments, because you've already been judged by the worst judge that exists. And yet, here you are. Marcus's story is the story of everyone who has ever been rejected. It's the story that the rejected of today is the admired of tomorrow. Not because the world will change its opinion about you, but because you finally stop asking the world for permission to be welcome in your own life. If this story touched something inside you, if at some point you saw yourself sitting on that bench with Marcus, reigning, without hope, I want you to know that you can be like him too. But for that, you need to make a decision today. The decision that your no's aren't final answers. They're just life pointing you to a better path. Share this story with someone you know needs to hear it. Someone who's sitting on a bench reigning, not knowing there's still a bridge to cross. And subscribe to this channel for more stories like this. Stories of real people who were rejected and became admired. Because your failure isn't your ending, it's your beginning. Thank you for being here with me on this journey. Your life is about to change. See you in the next video.